Ahoy VC, welcome to the Personal Oasis. This is the Blind Island. Right now we're going to be taking a look at an album and doing a review. If you have a differing opinion than the one that I have, please leave a comment below and let's have a discussion about it. I'd love to hear your opinion too. Now today we're going to be taking a look at an album that lands within a genre that is often maligned and beloved by many in the rock community, and that is prog rock. This record was released in 1971 on the Vertigo label and by the band Gentle Giant, and the album is Acquiring the Taste. This was their sophomore album, and gone are the trappings of their first record. Was a little bit more steeped in blues rock. They decided they were going full on into the symphonic progressive rock movement, and they were going to be pushing the boundaries of their sound and what their fan base had come to understand them as. They even wrote within their liner notes that they were not worried about losing fans and even becoming disliked as long as they were pushing the boundaries of what was going on within the actual album listening experience. They also were a little bit pushing record executive labels record label executives, I should say, sorry. Because the album artwork on there obviously is very tongue-in-cheek and with a salivating tongue over what looks like basically a butt. But it turns out that it's actually a peach if you fold out the gatefold, and many label executives were not happy about that. So there was a lot of controversy swirling around this album. However, it did turn out to be one of their most critically acclaimed and beloved records. But do I think that? Let's move on into my thoughts and observations. The first thing I noticed about this record is the production. This album was produced by Tony Visconti. His work with David Bowie is legendary, and I have to tell you, it's a great sounding record. The instruments all pop, nothing is sludgy, it's crisp, all of the instrumentation blends perfectly together and coalesces into a near perfect whole. The thing about prog rock is, if you're not into experimentation or just a song going from very heavy to almost Gregorian chant, then you're just going to hate this record, because it definitely does that. But what it doesn't do, where a lot of other prog bands at the time, and even this band later on in some of their later albums, is they don't overindulge. The longest songs on here are 6 minutes long, and I think that's the perfect length of time. You don't get bogged down by all of the semantics of the record, and you are able to just sit within the world of the song long enough to enjoy it, appreciate it, and move on to the next one. I do believe that some of the ideas that are on here are a little disparate. It's a little difficult to kind of get into the groove of the album, since they're more concerned about experimenting, pushing the envelope, and seeing how far they could take the album listening experience in general. I think that it's definitely not a hard rocker. If you're coming here because the Vertigo label is on there and expecting some psychedelia, I mean, it is psychedelic, but it's definitely not acid-driven or even folk rock-driven. It's in its own little world, I would have to say. And I think that a couple of the tunes on here fall a little flat as far as the vocal delivery is concerned. I'm not a huge fan of the lead vocalist, but overall I feel that he does a very adequate job, and that the experimentation definitely outweighs anything that flops here. Now, what I think are the album highlights on here are the tracks The House, The Street, The Room, Wreck, and Black Cat. I think that all of these songs have something interesting to offer, and that each one has a different sensibility to it. The House, the Street, the Room is probably the hardest rocker on this album, but it just moves between so many different areas. I really enjoy Wreck because it has this swaying sea shanty-esque thing going about it. I also enjoy Black Cat, probably the most symphonic out of all of the tracks that are on here. And yeah, I think that those would be my album highlights, even though most of the record holds up very well. My final thoughts are prog rock is a much maligned genre that, it really did change the way that people view rock and roll music. You wouldn't be having Sufjan Stevens, Iron and Wine, and many other indie rock groups that use tons of instruments if you didn't have groups like Gentle Giant pushing the envelope before them. So I think that while this record it's a little sloppy, definitely more concerned about its own experiments than creating a cohesive whole, it's still worthwhile. It's still something that I think is definitely deserving of a listen and owning in your own collection. So I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 5. It's very good, but definitely not a classic. So what did you guys think of Gentle Giant acquiring the taste? Do you think this is a classic? Do you think it's just pure trash? Let us know in the comments below. And I want to say I hope that you have a great day on your own personal oasis. Cheers.